Well, that is it, folks. The 2023 NFL Draft is in the books. There is a whole bunch of big new folks now on the 2023 Cleveland Browns roster. We're going to break it all down. Jeff Lloyd, Pete Smith on your latest Locked On Browns.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate everybody being along for the coverage this weekend from the 2023 NFL Draft. All the day oneers, we appreciate you all so much. All the new traffic coming in, stick around for a while, guys and gals. Got a lot more to break down here. We'll get through it this week, each and every individual Cleveland Browns pick coming up here in the week ahead. Joining me today, Pete Smith, Sports Illustrated Browns Digest. We're going to break it all down. Pete and I have been doing these episodes forever. We've always kind of joked about it. It's, in the old football terms, it's, the hay is in the barn, so to speak. Today's episode of Locked On Browns is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise, then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On, all caps, in the game. On today's slate, obviously the day started early, around noon, bunch of work being done. Late in the day, Browns go with a center from the Big Ten. Go with the defensive back. I'm going to say defensive back because we're going to get into that from the Big Ten. Obviously, the DTR, the rumors were real. Obviously, the visit was real. The Browns were invested in a quarterback and did go ahead and invest one today. So we'll get to that in segment 2. But, Pete, the day started for the Cleveland Browns here today, and this is going to create a whole bunch of topic of conversation for whenever we get a finality on whether it is or it isn't Jedrick Wills. His fifth-year option is going to be picked up. But the Browns' first selection of the day, 6'8" and change, 370 and change, just an absolute mammoth human being. Dawand Jones, offensive tackle from Ohio State, has been brought into the building in Berea.
Look, he's the size of a planet.
First thing I think of, Pete, when they made the selection, hey, as long as he gets off on the right snap count, it's going to take you at least 2.5 seconds to get around him.
Yeah, I mean, he not only does he have I've stood next to him. He's the biggest person I've ever been near, and I've stood by Shaq. And Dawand Jones, it's not even close. But he's not only big, it's how wide he is and how long his arms are. His wingspan is ridiculous. It was like the largest wingspan I think the Senior Bowl's ever measured or something like that.
I don't think I've ever heard at 90, and I think he was 89 and change. So yeah,
I mean his over 11-inch hands, and he's just gigantic. It's easy to understand why a team would take him, but there are real questions with him. I mean, he's not supposed to be available in the 4th round, but weight is a concern. He's 374 pounds, maybe. And given the offense the Browns want to run, that's not realistic. If you're somebody who is familiar with Mekhi Becton, who, by the way, despite everything, the Jets just picked up his option, which is another reason why I think Wills is going to have his picked up. Just the pounding on your joints at that size
100%.
is terrifying. And you're trying to change direction, do this, that, and the other thing. Like an athlete, it's a lot on those parts of your body. So, I mean, I'm hoping he can get down to just under 350. Just let's start there. And he's not unathletic either. He can move. He's got decent feet. Mm-hmm. So he can do the things that the Browns want to do. It's just so much with him is how bad does he want to be that guy? And if he does, it could be a massive steal for them. I'm hoping that Scott Peters moves in with him or just into him. He's the size of a freaking starter home. There's so much to like about him, but the concerns are real. So, you can't be Aaron Gibson and play in this zone scheme.
Well, and the other thing that, gives you some concerns here, I'm sure the fine folks down in Columbus at Ohio State were never thrilled with him being this heavy. So, they probably, I'm sure while he was there, they encouraged, hey, look, the injury factor is more real at this weight. So you do have to worry a little bit about, I'm sure this has been spoken to him, but yet it hasn't gotten any better yet. So now you think at 21 years old, here's some money, living a life for yourself, you got to be the most committed you've ever been in your entire life. Having someone to work with you like Bill Callahan is fine. But Bill Callahan, once you walk out of the facility, can't control, what you're doing for dinner, how you're eating, all those other things. But there's a lot of factors here. But yes, I mean, the potential of Dawand Jones is top shelf. It truly is. And, if the Browns could find a way to save some money on this offensive line, I'm sure they would not have an issue with that. As far as the other stuff, and it was tied to Jedrick Wills, we'll save all that stuff for another episode. This is, just basically about what went on here, today, day 3. I do appreciate the NFL. It seemed to move at a pretty good pace, so thank you for that. Pete, last night we did the episode, and, the Tillman pick, it wasn't a knock on him so much. It was just a knock on, I felt the needs were bigger elsewhere. They still are able to come around, come back, and still get Isaiah McGuire, which makes me feel a lot better about the Cedric Tillman pick, because I thought that's maybe where the well was starting to get dry. But you look at these guys that they like, obviously Miles Jadeveon's been in here. The size that Alex Wright was last year, the size of Isaiah Thomas. Obviously, Okoronkwo was a little bit different, type of, guy out there on the edge. But, they have their type. They know what they like. They just need some of these guys to start hitting, and hopefully that's going to be the case with McGuire.
Yeah, look, he might be the cleanest prospect they have in terms of hitting on athleticism, measurables, production, and just fit. It's easy to see why the Browns like him. He's big. He's a power base end. He is really effective at being able to generate power from his lower body and engage his hips. So, he's a good run defender, upside as a pass rusher, needs to do better at finishing, defeating blocks and sort of getting away from blockers a little bit. And his get off can be inconsistent. But there's nothing with him. You sit there and watch and you go, he's unfixable. He's 21. So there's just everything with him is in the right area in terms of getting another project sort of defensive end. With 2 years of good production in the SEC, he led the team in sacks and tackles for loss, I think both the last 2 years. I thought he gave Broderick Jones of Georgia a good game. Broderick Jones is better, but, I thought, that McGuire was the guy who was able to put pressure on him and move him into the backfield and do some other things. So he does a lot of things that I think fit with the Browns. I think he's a guy, he's really good at slanting, and I think that's going to be a big part of what Jim Schwartz wants to do. So that's another angle where I think he's a really, really good fit, and it just adds to what they already have in Alex Wright, and those guys are going to compete, and you're going to have a whole lot of big defensive linemen, big defensive ends.
Yeah, and the thing I take away from the Georgia tape is, look, you can go against a team like Georgia, and there's a lot of guys where it's like, look, man, I'm just going to live to fight another day. I know we're not going to win this game. Most likely, we're going to be lucky if we come within 30 points in this game. But you go out there and, obviously Jones's reputation, and, obviously he'll be somebody we're speaking about here for the next few years. Just let me get that out of my system, of course. But with that, McGuire, didn't back away from the challenge. And, that is obviously something, people are looking for. Look, you're going to the best competition. You thought you were going against the best competition you've ever seen in your life, and it's about to go and change from light years, difference. So, for Isaiah McGuire in the fold here, though, certainly made me feel a lot more comfortable with the way the first 4 went. You got the nose that you kind of desperately kind of needed, if whether or not it fit. Tillman, he does have a calling card in that wide receiver room that other guys do not have. It also allows you the ability to play big, where you can play Tillman, Peoples-Jones, Njoku, the other tight end, Akins, obviously, or you can continue. You can go small. There's a lot of things you can do there. So it made me feel better about the way the first 4 picks fell together for the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, and it was a very, very big quarterback market. I think it started maybe a little bit earlier than people expected. And it's funny with some of these positions, the way it goes, like when the run starts and it's just like, oh, well, we were going to draft a quarterback. Guess we got to do that now. It's kind of like, when grandma calls, desserts out, you better go and get it now or you're not going to have your opportunity. So we're going to get to the Browns selection of the quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Rogers, as we continue here on your latest Locked On Browns. Appreciate Pete Smith from Sports Illustrated being along for the ride. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard me talk about this mobile game app, and if you've ever thought you'd make a good pro sports general manager, you got to give this game a try. It's not as easy as you might think to create a dynasty. When you play Ultimate Football GM, you get to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory, trying to build an historic dynasty. I've been struggling. I can't manage every aspect in this game. When I think I have the right quarterback, I have the wrong offensive coordinator. When I bring in a new offensive coordinator, it seems I have to phase out my running back. These things just absolutely infuriate me. With Ultimate Football GM, you are responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries and terms, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, injuries, player personnel issues, and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. Locked On Browns listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On, all caps, no space, in the game store. That's Locked On, again, all caps. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. The Browns, as I said, got into the quarterback market, and he had been a player that the Browns had met with. He had made a trip to Berea. Pete, we had discussed after the quarterback wide receiver workout at the NFL Combine, and there he was throwing with C.J. Stroud. There he was throwing with Anthony Richardson. Obviously, all the guys on these two, and went out there and put together a magnificent workout for himself. All his throws were online. Now, my question is this something where, and obviously we don't feel that there's any threat to QB1 right now. But, I know we've talked about this in the past, Pete, when we've talked about the Ravens. It's trying to find out or find someone who can be similar to what your guy is. So that way it's not that much of a drastic difference if, God forbid, something happens. Josh Dobbs is here on a 1-year, $2 million deal. I don't want to carry 3 quarterbacks. Pete doesn't want to carry 3 quarterbacks. I don't think anyone wants to carry 3 quarterbacks. We'll see if that rule gets any legs to it. But, Pete, there could be a scenario here, at least in my opinion. Look, Josh Dobbs hasn't played much. I mean, he played a little bit last year. It was okay-ish. But if you were saying straight up DTR versus Josh Dobbs, and it was a straight up battle, it wouldn't be too inconceivable that DTR would win the job.
Yeah, I mean, look, I really like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I was loud wrong. I didn't think the Browns.
I just got to stick with DTR because I'm butchering that sucker every which way from Tuesday.
I did not think the Browns would draft a quarterback. I thought they were entirely doing homework to look down the line, and they went ahead and took him. Has played in 50 games at UCLA. I think 40 as a starter, and then 10 that weird freshman year where
he's been out there longer than Ryan Burns.
Yes, he's been playing a while. He played Chip Kelly's offense. Bill Musgrave coached with Chip Kelly when he was with the Eagles.
Terry Donahue.
UCLA. The DTR has the ability to move. He's got a really strong arm. He's gotten better every year. So given where the Browns got him, I thought he'd be a guy that might go day 2, because if you were going to bet on a guy to sort of like outplay his spot and become like a franchise type dude just to take a shot. He was the guy who stood out in that respect. So I get it. And now, he's obviously going to compete. I think the Browns are going to carry 3 quarterbacks. I think that Josh Dobbs is sort of not only there to be help out and be the extra voice and eyes and everything else for
I've got the iPad ready, Deshaun. Let's go sit down.
But he's also going to sort of make sure that, that DTR sort of understands what it takes to be a professional. So there, and then in a year, Josh Dobbs will probably go. They have to trade Josh Dobbs if they want to get out of a large amount of that money. Like, he's got $2 million, and all of it's guaranteed. Just some of it's in a bonus and some of it's just guaranteed salary. So they'd have to trade him to get out of that. So it's not to say they can't. I just don't think they will. It's possible that they can get Kellen Mond on the practice squad, maybe. But the one thing I do not think will ever happen is I do not think DTR will be cut. That's just stupid and really bad. You don't make this selection and by any way say, oh, can we maybe subject him to that and sneak him on it? No. You don't make this move with that in mind. 31 other teams pinky swear that you're not going to grab my guy. So look, I was surprised by the pick. There's certainly other players I would have liked with that pick, but in a vacuum, I like the player. I like the fit. I like what he does relative to Deshaun Watson. So there's a lot of things that I can appreciate with the pick, even if my biggest qualm isn't with the player, it's with the roster spot.
I don't disagree there. But in the same respect, if you had probably told either you or I, hey, guess what? They're not going to draft a linebacker. They're not going to draft a running back. We'd have been like, all right, well, that makes a hell of a lot more sense.
Yes.
But look, this is why we all enjoy it the way we do, guys, though, is because, we view it the way we view it. And then we get, some things, that just turn out to be a little bit different here. We got a minute or two before we got switched up to the next segment. So, Pete, why don't you jump in here? Obviously, just initial thoughts here, reaction as far as, Tillman and Ika. I mean, just seeing Ika and look, and Pete, we've always joked here for years, and anybody who's listened, and Pete's been on a million times. We always joke. We love these type of guys. The guys where football is part of your heritage, is part of your family foundation, and then you see this guy trying to look all cool, all happy, sunglasses on, and you just see the dude just swelling up. But Pete, your initial thoughts on the 2 selections for Friday night?
I love Cedric Tillman. It's like Martin Emerson last year. I just didn't think that was a guy they'd really look at. In part because he's 23, and in part because
Jack Duffin's computer probably had a meltdown across the pond,
and partly because we were so led to believe that the Browns were like really honed in on these smaller, speedier guys. And Cedric Tillman's not slow. This is the thing. He runs a 4.5. He runs a 4.5, but he's 213 pounds, and we've got to get out of this idea that 210 plus pounds going 4.5 is somehow slow. The Browns
not everybody's Calvin Johnson.
Well, they don't have to. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. 4.5 is normal fast for 2 plus 210, not Calvin Johnson type speed.
Because you get the direct comparison, and and look, I'm willing to believe that Jalen Hyde is faster than the 4.4 he ran at the combine. But he's 176 pounds. It's almost 37 pounds of difference. Which one are you more worried about? 213 coming your way at 4.5 or, 176 coming at you at 4.4? Beyond that, Tillman profiles as that X, you've got a very definitive timeline of Amari Cooper. It's 2 years. If Tillman can make it happen, you're set, because you're going to still probably extend DPJ. You've got David Bell, you've got Elijah Moore, both on rookie contracts. That's a really good setup. And they seem to be embracing this power spread, which I really like. Just be bigger than everybody else. Ika, I have a lot of questions. I like his tape better than everything else. He didn't produce. He's not a good athlete based on testing. Everything seems to be you're hoping the tape is more indicative of him being a good athlete than actual testing is. He's a powerful guy, don't get me wrong. And if he's nothing more than Danny Shelton, the Browns will be thrilled. But, I don't like getting in the habit of taking guys who didn't produce and are unathletic. You are now asking a guy to outperform history in that sense. He's trying to be a backup at that point, and that's not a good way to live. Now, just by sheer size of that and the position he plays, you might be able to get away with it. But it's not the pick I would have made. But I get it. The Browns got much bigger in a division with a whole lot of big people.
Well, the other thing is now this is now two prospects that have brought him into the 2023 class, and with both of them, you're thinking we need to get you guys at a better physique. We need to get you slim and trim, and it's just really, really difficult to do. And as much as you say, hey, you want this guy to get bigger, after X amount of time, if it hasn't happened, it hasn't happened. But it's the same thing with the guys who are bigger. But look, you keep taking shots. You keep taking filling needs as to what you're doing, as far as what the overall goal is. Are the Browns still interested in a veteran defensive tackle? I would be stunned if they were not. We're going to get to segment 3 here. Last 2 selections of the day. Browns had 3 final selections, traded one away to the Baltimore Ravens. But hey, if you can turn a 7th round pick into a 6th round pick, that is a roll of the dice you're going to take more often than not. Your latest Locked On Browns. Appreciate you all for being along for the ride this week here. And the day oneers, of course, you guys are always the engine that makes this show go. Looking for a delicious snack, but don't want all the sugar and calories? Then you need the best tasting protein bar ever. Built. You got to try this. If you're like me and want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy. They taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so amazing, you won't think they are good for you. You got to try it. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. Come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. And now you don't need to wait to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at Built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club, and while you still can get the specialty flavors on the website. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream bars, double chocolate, or coconut puff. If you're closer to Sam's Club, run in, grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie, batter puff, and churro puff. And guys and gals, you can thank me later. Rolling through here on your latest Locked On Browns, Jeff Lloyd, Pete Smith along for the ride. The Browns draft concludes. Pete, I think the safest thing to say is they drafted defensive back Cam Mitchell out of Northwestern. What exactly his role is, and looking at him, the body type he is, certainly brings up some questions. The Browns also draft center, former New Jersey high school athlete. Just warms my heart. Luke Whippler, center out of Ohio State. A lot of people were surprised that he left Ohio State at the time he did. Is what it is. Certainly brings a bunch of questions as far as the center position, as now the Browns would technically have 3 center onlys and a 4th guy they drafted late last year in day 3 who has center interior experience. But Pete, Cam Mitchell, Luke Whippler, they joined the fold here as the Browns closed out their 2023 draft class.
Well, look, I wanted a corner. This class is loaded. And they got a corner who's played in a heavy man scheme, who's talented enough and athletic enough to play potentially inside and outside. He's got a ton of special teams reps. I think it's 383.
Yep.
And it's interesting.
So he's ready. He's ready to go from day one.
Yeah, like the Browns are really loading up their special teams unit with big wide receivers and then their smaller DBs.
Well, you hire a special teams coach. It makes sense.
Yeah. So
a new one, I should say.
So that part of it's interesting, but like you can't have enough good corners and you give yourself more depth. And it's just, this is the position that was just loaded. Like I think Dane Brugler had him as a 3rd round grade, for example. And he's a guy.
I think it was 80. I think that Dane had him like 83.
And if you go by Jim Coburn's historical analysis, he's just a hair below Pro Bowl average for everything. He's productive. He does a lot of things. Now he's got some stuff to improve upon, but that's why I think you just go into this draft and you just lean to where the strength was. The strength wasn't with safeties and linebackers. It was with corners and some of these other things. Luke Whippler, I would not have expected the Browns to have taken him. But again, I wouldn't have expected him to be here this long.
You don't normally leave as a redshirt sophomore and go in the 6th round. No.
He's got a ton of similarities to Nick Harris. He's undersized, he's very smart, and he's very athletic, and he plays with excellent technique.
I would say the advantage he has over Nick Harris is he's probably played better overall competition. And this isn't just on the Big Ten, but it's the fact that Ohio State's played in playoffs games.
Well, I mean, if you recall, Nick Harris got just destroyed when he was a guard in the playoffs at Washington.
Yep.
But nevertheless, I mean, Whippler's been, he's been a very effective center. And obviously he played, the national championship or the playoffs against Georgia and some of these other teams. So yeah, it's a lot to like. Nick Harris is on the last year of his rookie deal. Whippler, entering his. So if he can take that job, the Browns can theoretically move on from Harris and have another rookie. But just like Nick Harris, Luke Whippler cannot play anywhere but center. He's not big enough. He's not strong enough. Don't do it. It's like when the Browns had to put Nick Harris at guard, and it was a train wreck after the second game. Whippler is a center only. He's a great fit for zone center. He's the polar opposite of everything Dawand Jones is, which is weird that was 40% of Ohio State's offensive line. So yeah, again, great value to me, and gives the Browns a lot of options to continue building their offensive line, and gives Scott Peters and Bill Callahan more toys to play with, which you're not going to be unhappy about. I think they can make that pay off handsomely for them.
No question. Now, Pete, look, just real quick, Jedrick Wills left tackle, Joe Bitonio, Ethan Posick, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin. You figure James Hudson's in this fold. You figure Dawand Jones is in this fold. You're at 7 right there. Like, the Browns have had some of these guys that have kind of like stuck around for almost like 2 full seasons now. But Browns got to start making some decisions here, as far as, what's maybe some of the guys who might be the next phase of this offensive line. They're going to have to cut some ties here. They got a lot of offensive linemen.
Well, they do every year. And I don't know what.
So, it's the old line. Don't worry, it'll work itself out. And it usually does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of contraption they have to injure their own guys and somehow sneak them onto IR every year that seems to avoid them actually losing anybody. But it's put up or shut up time for Drew Forbes. And I love Prospect X. Every year to me is the year of Prospect X. But, they've got to compete and they've got to win. Dawson Deaton, I didn't think he was going to make the team last year, and then he tore his ACL. He's going to be a guard only this time around. There's some other guys that I think will get sorted out, and maybe this is the year the Browns finally are able to trade a veteran center or a veteran offensive lineman for something of value and continue to add potentially picks in the future.
Certainly possible. Before we close it out here, Pete, let's just go with this right. Of the other 3 teams in the AFC North, which draft is the one that for you, I don't want to say it hurts the Browns, but makes the most significant change for the way that team was currently constructed? I think we know the answer.
It's probably the Steelers, just because it gets them back to who they want to be. They've been living the lie at tackle for a couple of years. They get a very good one in Broderick Jones. They have
Look, Joey Porter Jr., even if his dad wasn't Joey Porter, he is a Steeler through and through. He plays like a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Well, what's worse about Joey Porter is that it gives the Steelers a guy who can physically match up with some of the Browns' bigger targets.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, Cedric Tillman, et cetera, et cetera.
And just Amari Cooper. Like, they didn't have
Amari Cooper and him is not a good matchup for the Browns, no.
So Joey Porter helps them on that front. And then, Keanu Benton was a guy that was really popular as a Browns potential target. I'm very curious to see how he works in a true odd front.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want to keep him doing.
I would think with his background and the pretty decent athleticism, if I'm the Steelers, I'm going to say, look, we're going to put you out on the edge until we say we don't think you can do it.
Right. 100%. So, I like what he becomes. I think Keanu Benton looks really good when the Steelers do sub package and get into an even front. And then they get Nick Herbig. I'm not entirely sure what he's going to be. If they're going to,
is his name Nick Herbig Watt, or we don't acknowledge that part, right? He just feels like he's like the Watts cousins, or like the kids who grew up next door, the Herbigs.
They're probably going to see if he can function as an edge rusher, and if he can't, then they move him to an inside backer role that can still be an effective blitzer. But that draft, and then they get Darnell Washington and they get Corey Trice. Both have medical flags. If those guys are good, like health-wise, Darnell Washington gives them a sixth offensive lineman that really, along with Broderick Jones, gives them a huge boost for Najee Harris, gives them the ability to play big more consistently, and then they can obviously go smaller if they want to. And then, Corey Trice, phenomenal athletic testing, press corner, again, another guy with size, looks like a linebacker, but was coming off an ACL, didn't look very good because of that during the season. So, the athletic testing would suggest he's healthy, but if he was healthy, I don't think he would have lasted that long because he's a dominant press corner. So they've got a lot of things that could work out really well for them. So if nothing else, if they just get Jones, Porter, and Benton, and they're successful, they're going to be thrilled. But they've got what amount to be two like lottery tickets in Washington and Trice. And if those guys don't work out, it's a bummer, but
yep,
they will be okay.
No doubt. Yeah, they're the ones. I mean, the Ravens was kind of weird because he added two linebackers there, and with Roquan Smith, and my feelings on Patrick Queen, and Pete's feelings on Patrick Queen. Pile jumper is kind of what Patrick Queen is, what I think of when I see Patrick Queen. But they drafted more linebackers. We'll see what it works out for them. Cincinnati, look, it's all about what's in house and what's going to be in house for the next few years there. But to finally, start to close it out here, your Browns 2023 draft class: Cedric Tillman, of course, Saliki Ika, Dawand Jones, Isaiah McGuire, DTR. It's going to be DTR because I'm not going to butcher that name any more than I already have today, at least. Cam Mitchell, Northwestern, Greg Newsom's buddy. We got a little running mate here. Hopefully Greg Newsome is, all satisfied, ready to rock. Luke Whippler traded away the final pick. You have the 7th round pick for a 6th round pick in 2024, where the Browns hold 8 selections: a 2nd, a 3rd, 2 5ths, 2 6ths, 2 7ths. So if you want to get started on Monday morning, mock drafting your faces off, knock yourselves out with all of that, kids. He is Pete Smith, Browns Digest, SportsIllustrated.com. Pete and the team, another phenomenal draft weekend. But it's not just draft weekend. It's day in, day out. It's week in, week out. Pete and his team over there do phenomenal work. Make sure you're checking it out. Make sure you're following @_Pete Smith_ Browns Digest, obviously on Twitter as well. The site's got a million things, a lot of written contact, podcasts, video stuff, all great stuff for you guys to check it out. So make sure you're doing that. Myself, Jeff Lloyd, @Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. The show @Locked On Browns, follow back account. We appreciate everybody for being along for the ride here on Locked On Browns. A lot of new traffic this week, and all I can tell you is, look, we're here every day. We are here every week. We've been here every day and week since 2017, so we are not going anywhere. So we appreciate you all the day oneers, for Garrett Bush, myself, everything, all the work that's gone in the last couple of weeks getting to this point. Thank you all for being a part of it. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, notifications on, audio folks, wherever your favorite podcast platform is. Make sure we're always there. We are always free. So make sure you keep checking us out there if that is, the route you all choose to go. But that is it. It's a wrap. 2023 NFL Draft in the books, which means this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.